Welcome back, everyone. So, this is season 2, session 4, and without further ado, let's jump back to the codes and start where we left off. So, this is what we have designed so far, and the another thing that we need to add here is actually some radio boxes. So, for example, so you can see the user can check multiple items here, but in a radio input type, a user can only choose one item. So this is our div here. Sorry, hit Control Z here, and I'm going to copy all of these here and actually use a HR tag here and paste them all again here. And if we come back to the codes here and hit refresh, as you can see, we have duplicated them all. But the only difference here is that we want to use, instead of checkbox, we are going to replace that with radio. So I hit Control D and, sorry, this is checkboxes. So instead of checkbox, we say just radio. This is radio, and these radios would be radios. No longer we need that E, I believe. So if you come back here, hit refresh, as you can see, now we have these radio boxes, but it has two problems. First of all, the display of this input is on block. Just we mentioned it's block, and we need to fix this. And the another issue is that user should only choose one item, not multiple items. And why this is happening, why this problem exists, because, well, the thing is, the input types here should have a same name. So as you can see, we did not give any name to these checkboxes as well to this input type radios. Since they do not have the same name attribute, that's why user can actually choose multiple items. So that's why we need to first of all give it a name. So hit Control D to highlight all of them. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to actually assign a name to this, and the name of this should be I call it here, okay? And usually the name that we choose for our inputs or anything here, we should cooperate with backend developer. Usually backend developer tells us what name to use, and for now we just choose the name that we like. And we forgot to set a name for these checkboxes as well, so that's why I'm going to give it a name, and the name should be, okay, countries. I make it countries, so then I put the name as countries. This is it. And let's come back to this here and hit refresh, and as you can see, the multiple items user can use, but for this now user can only choose one item. So we have grouped all of these with name attribute, and user can only choose one. And the reason that why we need these name attribute is because imagine that we have multiple radio boxes. For example, let's imagine, just this is something that I'm going to clean a little bit later. So let's imagine that here in this div we have, let's say we have another label here. The Egypt has been wrong. This www at the Egypt is wrong. So this triple X and this triple Y, this is just test, triple Z. And let's put the name at F. For example, we set the name on test. So now these all have the same name, so they are in one group, and this is another group. So what happens is, if I come back here, hit refresh, I can only choose one of these items, but for this I can actually choose one for this. So the name is actually, for radio box, one thing that it does, it actually groups your radio box. You put them inside a group for that. And now that we have put name for these things, this is completely local. But another thing that we need to fix is actually the width 100%. If you remember, in our CSS code, we set the the first thing that we did was actually we set all of the inputs of width 100%, and then we add this not type checkbox, and that's what happened here. And hit refresh, and let's come back here, and so we can actually go ahead and add this checkboxes. So you can come back here and put another comma here, another comma here, and say that not radio. Okay, not radio. If we come back here, hit refresh, we can see this is now fixed. This is one way to do it, actually. And the other way is to actually, so now that we learned this complicated line here, let's change this to another way. Let's use another way. I'm trying to use multiple ways so that you can understand in our code we have always multiple ways of selecting tags. So that was one way, and now I'm going to use another way for selecting this display block and with 100%. The other way that we can use is actually overwriting. For example, here, let's clean this not section that we have here. For example, I'm saying that all the inputs and selects should have display block and with 100%. But we have also something here, radios and checkboxes. So we can actually go ahead and say that inside these checkboxes, we have so many input. Okay, and these checkboxes is actually inside form div, and we can go ahead and set the display to inline block and unset the width. And let's come back here to our codes, hit refresh. As you can see, the checkbox is fixed, checkboxes, but the radio is not fixed because we forgot to choose the radio as well. So we can say radios as well. So come back here, hit refresh. This is actually another way of doing that. So why the last one is not fixed? Because we forgot to delete that E. We can come back here, hit refresh, and now this is okay. So another thing that we had, this label that we had here, so let's cut that here and paste this here. And for this, we have also we have set the label to display block here, and we can apply this for the labels too. So instead of duplicating these checkboxes and radio boxes every time, let's use a proper name for that. So I'm not deleting these parts of my video because so many times it happens that you write a code and you keep coding, and at a point you realize that you made a mistake back when you were trying to do something else. Now I have realized that I have made a mistake. I admit the mistake, and I can come back and fix the mistake. So this is something that very often happens. Developers, when they try to code something, they're trying to develop something, they often make mistake and they come back, fix their mistake. So forget about everything that we did so far. We have used these checkboxes here, checkboxes, radios. So now that I'm using different names for that, I'm facing some problems. So rather than using checkboxes, so double click on this and hold Alt. Rather than using these radio and checkboxes, let's use another name, and I'm call it columns. I call it columns. So I call it columns. So now I no longer have to duplicate these for every time, say a radio, comma, checkboxes, radio, checkboxes. So now I have used a proper name. So I'm using columns here, and this is the columns here. The other thing was that actually the label has an input inside that, and this input should have a width of onset and display of inline block. Okay, come back here, hit refresh, and now everything is fixed and it's okay. So now the only thing that we need to do is to actually replace the text, because for now I just copied everything from here, but we actually need to change the values here. And we do not have 1, 2, 3 columns, we actually have 2 columns here. So we can go ahead and delete the last column here, okay, and come back here, hit refresh, and this is it. And rather than using columns, now I think we can delete that as it's unnecessary. You can just say column, okay. So here we need to fix that as well. So this is it, come back here, hit refresh, and everything is okay. So now we only need to replace these texts. So I put that on fast forward again. And now it's finished. I replaced everything. Hit come back here, hit refresh, and the text is fixed here. So we have created this, but let's fix another thing here. Something that I forgot is to actually capitalize these labels that we have here. So let's come back here. These are our columns, and these are the labels that I need to fix here, that I need to capitalize text. I can actually go ahead and choose like first name, but since this is an educational course, let's learn how to capitalize text with CSS. So we have these labels. All I'm trying to do is to select these labels, not the other labels here. So for this, here I have actually a form div here, I'm trying to give a class to something, and I'm trying to figure out what the class should be. So I'm going to give a class of inputs, okay, and I can go ahead and in general forms, I say in general form inputs, we have some label, and these labels, they all should have a text transfer. I'm going to put that on capitalize. So if we come back here, hit refresh, we can see this is actually fixed. So we can actually don't worry about this select your region. We can use Control Alt L to lowercase them all. As you can see now, everything is transferred and the text is capitalized. So this is it, and we have completed the structure of our code. The last thing, if we put here, is actually another HR tag here. So now we have our bottom, this is submit, but rather than submit, we actually should use the word save rather than submit. So let's fix this word, and now our HTML is completed. We just need to make this form a little pretty and make it beautiful. So in the next session, we start working with CSS, and we start to make this form pretty. So we have designed what the customer or what the client has asked for, but we need to make it actually a little nicer than what we have here. And something that before I end this session, something that I need to say here, once again, the reason that I'm using my CSS code like this, writing my CSS code like this, for example, this form group inside this is inside that, this is some sort of nested selecting, this way of selecting tags called nested selecting. And usually people who work with SES and LAS, when they come to CSS, they rather use this type of syntax. And this is actually a decent syntax, and so many developers write their CSS code like this nested way. I recommend you to use this nested way as well. For example, you can see everything that I select is actually nested. For example, let's see, label inside this is inside that. This is inside this is inside that, this is inside that, okay? And if you forgot about the difference between this angel bracket, maybe, or arrow selector, and this space selector, let's mention it once more so that you can remember. When I say use this character here, I'm saying that actually, for example, let's see this one. This one, it means go ahead and select every select tag that is inside this general form. So this is our general form here, okay, and every select tag here, for example, it doesn't matter if it's exactly its children, because this form has actually 1 children, 2 children, 3 children, sorry, 4, 5, 6, and 7 children. This form has 7 children. Although inside this div has so many other things inside that, but this is not considered as a child of this general form. This is a grandchild of this general form. Okay, so when we use this character, it only selects the children, the exact children. It doesn't select the grandchildren. But the space selector, it selects both children and grandchildren everywhere. So that's the difference between a space and this arrow or angel bracket selector. So this is it. That's enough for this session. And in the next session, we are going to make our form a little more pretty. So this is it. Hope to see you in the next session.